Okay, let's get Clip Studio up. Hopefully it's recording. Let's see. Yep. All right, so you've made your new project. That is the wrong size. I guess I'll do this real quick. We're in inches. Yep. Wow. That's all right. Look on with somebody else. 10. Oops. Yeah, 14. 9. Oops, this should be 14. That should be 15. Okay, bleed should be 0.25. Oops, come on. 0.25. Should be 11. 17. 10, 15, 9, 14. I don't know why it continually changes like that. It's so dumb. Okay, now we're back where it should be. Okay, we're going to put it on the desktop. We're going to call this Test Comic. Okay, so you should have already made your comic. If not, you can pause that and try and follow what I did. But it's pretty important that you have it in inches, and you make sure you put that bleed in there. All right, so this is your file. When you open it up, okay, this is the test comic. You're going to open this one. Okay, these are the individual pages. You can open them one at a time, but what this does, and it's kind of what the difference is between basic mode and super mode when you buy the program. It gives you story mode. So you open the page management file. All right, once you have your page management file open, it'll give you all the pages at once so you can see them and work on them multiple at once. The reason that's important is because when you export them all, it'll do that all at the same time, so you don't have to export them one at a time. Or if you need to make changes to each one, it'll do it to all of them. All right, I'm going to open page 1. Okay, it should look like this. This inside area is your safe area. This is the edge of the page, and this last one is the bleed. So when it cuts the page, it's going to cut it on the page edge, but it might go off a little bit one way or another. Okay, I'm going to bring my page, my scan, in. So I go File, Import, Image. I go and find my scan. Let's see if I can grab somebody's. Here's some scans. Let's see. I'm going to embarrass somebody here real quick. All right, this one's clean. We'll use this one. Yay, Marlene's the winner. All right, so it drops it in. I'm going to try and make my inside safe area match the page. Now it's not going to be exact, but we'll get it close. And notice it moves a little bit. All right, so it's a little bit wider than our original. Let's see. Oh, I can go a little more. About as good as we're going to get. So when we go to do our panels, we're going to have a little extra room on the sides. That's okay. We'll just give us a little more room to draw, or we can blow it up some more and trim a little bit. But I think this is probably okay. All right, once I've got it where I want it, I'm going to click this once to change the layer color. Okay, see what happened? So that's my scan. We make it that transparent blue look. Okay, once I've got that, I can't really undo that by making it dark. So if you mess that up, it's all right. You can re-import because you haven't lost your JPEG. Once it's in here, it makes it its own thing. So it has not changed your original scan. So if I don't like this, I can go back and bring it in again. All right, here's where this gets really cool. If you go to this tool that's 2 under the paint bucket. Okay, you've got a bunch of sub tools here. You've got direct. This is where you would draw lines and boxes and continuous curves and rectangles and all that stuff. That's fine. We don't want that. We want the frame border tool. This is what makes this program so awesome. Okay, you go to a rectangle frame. I'm going to try this one, see what that is. Now, there's a couple ways you can do that, but I think the rectangle frame tool is probably the best option. You click and drag. See how it kind of snapped to the edge? Boom. So you can set it up so it will do that. And then I click. So now I've got a frame. It's its own folder. Now the cool thing about the frame tool is that when you go to draw on this normal panel layer with one of the tools, it confines it to only within that box. Now if I pull this out of that folder, see how I drew all of that? As long as it's inside that folder, that little grouping, it'll confine whatever you did to just that. Now you're thinking, okay, I did all that work drawing on that board and then you made me ink it. I can't even see it. What's the point? Well, if I go and turn off the background, I can now see that thing I'm supposed to be tracing. All right, so I'm going to step back a couple because I don't need those scribbles. Okay, so what I always try and do first is get my rectangle frames done first. So I'm going to pop those in first. Okay, now there's one thing. Let's see if I can figure out where it is. When you do your rectangles, your frames, after you do the first one, you only have to do this once. If you go to the object or the operation tool, set to object, and you click on those frames, you'll get a separate set of tool properties. Now, usually you've got this one checked, and what that'll do is it'll, these two, it'll make it work with the other frames. The problem is it's going to make them move together, and we don't want that. See? That's really annoying. So if you want to reshape one, it's going to screw it all up. So you're going to unclick those. So one more time, in case you missed it, I drew my frame, and then I go to the operation tool, make sure I'm on object, and click on one of those frames, and then I turn those two off. If you turn it off once, they should be off all the time. Okay? So that way you won't have it pulling, frames pulling each other. Okay, I'm going to go in, drop in the rest of my frames. Looks like there's two here. Now you can resize these if you don't like how they look. If this frame is too thick, we can change that with the operation tool. We can go in and turn it down to 20, let's say. So it'll be a little thinner. Just depends on what look you want. Okay, you can change the color of it. If your page is black and you want white frames, you can do that too. All right, I'm going to go back and turn off all my backgrounds so I can see the stuff underneath. All right, so, I'm missing one. It's that last one. Now notice it does them in reverse order. I get like super OCD about my panels. So if I minimize all these and close them all, I can go back and drag that layer so that they're in the right order. It doesn't really matter. It's just, for me, a little easier. The other way you can do it so you don't have to do this is do them in reverse order. Start with the last one and work your way back, and then they'll be in the right order. I don't know if that makes sense. So if I did this one first, it would be there, and then I do the next one, it pops up on top. So I do them in reverse order, it's in the right order. Whatever you do with your frames, make sure you figure it out on the first one so you don't have to go back and change them all so they look right. Now, kind of a cool thing about this program is if you change the settings before you make whatever it is you make, it should stay that way for all of them after it. So that text included. If I set my text to a certain font and a certain size, and then I make my text box on the page, all of them after that will stay as that. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, so I've got my panels drawn. All right, you've got a bunch of tools here, and within each of these tools, you've got multiple options. So you've got your pen tool. Some people really dig the pen tool. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it in action. Okay, so you got a bunch of different ones. The G pen's kind of cool. The click free pen's kind of cool. Let's just look at the G pen. Okay, so see how it kind of starts and ends, and you can edit all of those functions in here. You know, you can change all of that within these. You know, brush shape, brush tip. You know, there's a spot in here where you can change the starting and ending. I'd have to find it, but all right. So I guess that's kind of cool. You know, calligraphy pens. Oops. If you want that pen look, cool. I don't really recommend it when you're inking, but you can use that if you feel like, hey, I'm super advanced and I know what I'm doing. What I recommend you using is the marker pen. Okay, so I'm going to set this about 10. So generally at 300 DPI, 10 is a good size. And as I'm inking this, I put that on that layer. Make sure you label your layers just like in Photoshop. Now if I need a thicker one, I can make a thicker one. If I need an even thicker one than that, I can make that. If you want to save your pens, you can create new ones here and then, you know, call it thin, mid, thick, whatever. So you can do that, and you can export your pens, I believe, from here if you want to save them. Export subtool, you know. So there's a way to export your tools. All right, and then you'll make a new layer here, new raster layer. You don't want a new vector layer, you want raster layers. And then we can go back, change our colors, and then color it in. Okay, but wait a minute, I colored over the top of my ink. Yeah, because your ink is on top. All right, just like with Photoshop, it's very similar. We'll call these the flats. Once you get inked, well, you're going to need to know all this because you're doing one page per week. So let me go through the rest. I'm going to make a layer for inks, and you can do more than one. I'm going to make a layer for my flats, which are my basic tones, you know, if I'm coloring it in. Once I get all my inks done, marker pen 1, go back to black. You can also save your colors. All right, so I've inked the whole thing. I've colored in the flats on the whole thing. Then there's a couple ways to do shading, and I think I did a video for that, but just in case, I'm going to do it real fast. You can do your shading kind of very hard style, where you do your shadows and your highlights. Where I get this color. Oh, by the way, on the pen, the button acts as your dropper tool. So if you push the button, it'll pick up that color, and you can go in here and change it. I know this is a lot, but that's why I'm recording it. Okay, and then you can do your shadows like that as a hard shadow, or you can use one of the many tools. I use the shadow in the airbrush quite a bit because that makes a fairly realistic shadow. That's kind of cool. Or you can use in the brush, I go to the watercolor and use the transparent watercolor. It doesn't work like Rebelle, but it does give you a little bit of, you know, you can feather that. I don't recommend the transparent watercolor, but you can. For me, I found the best shading tool is the shadow on the airbrush, because you can really go over it and over it, and if you get your settings right, it's a good shadow tool. Now, if you want an old school look, there's really something cool in Clip Studio Paint. If you go into the materials folder, you should be listening to this, and you go to the monochromatic patterns. Okay, you've got kind of that old school half toning thing that they used in newspapers and whatnot. If I create an area with my lasso, and then I go back and find the half toning I want, I just drag it in there. Check that out. Now, if that's too thick, I can go find one that's a little less dense, like the 30%. Now, you can edit them. If you want to change those settings, you can go in and change the settings of the toning. But there's already some in here that are good. Like 60% is pretty good. And that gives you kind of an old school comic, you know, comic strip feel. I've used all of these. So lots of ways of doing this. You're going to explore a bit. The first week, you know, you could probably, you know, spend 2 weeks figuring out your style. I would like you to definitely have your page inked and your colors, your flats, done next week. You know, maybe we'll take some time following week to figure out your shading and your highlights and all that. And I'll do a quick video on that. It's going to take you probably a couple days to do the inks. Don't spend too long making it perfect. You can always go back and fix it, but let's try and get a fairly decent ink layer done. Okay, so you're tracing what you already traced on your board. Okay, so we're doing inks in here digitally. That way we can go back and fix things. Okay. And keep in mind, once you're in this, I can turn this off and all of that work disappears. So if I need to see what's underneath, it's all within this folder. Got it? All right, I'm going to stop this recording.